Hello there, and welcome to this video where I'll be ranking all the reinforcements in Star Wars Battlefront 2 from worst to best. This list is far from perfect, and if you disagree, feel free to respectfully debate me. The way I decided where each of these reinforcements would be ranked was by looking at how good they are in close combat and long-distance fights, how effective they are in one-on-one combat and in big group clashes, how good they are at playing or assisting the objective, and finally, other more niche utilities that they have. Without further ado, let's get into the rankings. Coming in last place is the Ewok. I think the Ewok is very fun when goofing around with friends, but there is so little use to this tiny critter. The Ewok is not very good up close, it isn't very good at long ranges, it isn't very good in a 1v1, and it isn't very good in a group. The Wisties pouch is a pretty nice crowd control ability, but other than that, the Ewok is worse than a regular trooper in nearly every way, making for a certain last place. In 18th place is the Wookiee Warrior. The Wookiee Warrior has a very useful thermal detonator, the overcharged crossbow is very strong up close, and the Wookiee Warrior is decent when fighting lightsaber heroes, but outside of that, there's not much use to him. The range of the Wookiee Warrior is absolutely atrocious, and if your aim is not the best, like mine, then you will likely die even in close quarters combat. The Wookiee Warrior also doesn't have a ton of survivability to him. This all adds up to another reinforcement that I think I'd rather be a regular trooper than. These two reinforcements are the only ones I would say are almost always not really worth the battle points. The next few reinforcements, though, are all situationally great, but leave something to be desired, hence the lower ranking. Moving on in 17th place, we have the Flame Trooper. The Flame Trooper is a very situational reinforcement that can be abundantly powerful in the right situations, but also falls flat on its face in all other scenarios. The Flame Trooper can shred enemies in close proximities and in cramped areas, and it can also do so with a large crowd too. The problem is that if there's any range involved in the encounter, then the Flame Trooper is almost certainly going to die due to its atrocious range. This essentially makes the basic Trooper better than the Flame Trooper in a large majority of settings, although when the Flame Trooper is good, he's very good. Placing 16th on this list is the Abyssian Gunner. The Abyssian Gunner packs a hefty punch, however it has a lengthy wind-up time. The minigun is an incredibly powerful weapon in Battlefront, but the Abyssian Gunner's minigun has a cooldown that severely limits the effectiveness of said weapon. Miniguns are important because they have phenomenal crowd control capabilities. However, since the Abyssian Gunner requires a cooldown on his gun, the crowd is able to get a bit out of control during that cooling period. The abilities are a tad lackluster too, consisting of a sentry that any heavy has, an underwhelming explosive shot, and a situational short shoulder charge. Overall, the Abyssian Gunner is still a situationally good reinforcement that can play the objective well, but it has glaring weaknesses that are too easy to exploit to put it higher. In 15th place is the K-Fek Spy. In short, the K-Fek Spy's blaster is okay but slow. The abilities Stab Strike and Overload are fine but fairly unremarkable, but the Orbital Strike is where the reinforcement shines. The Orbital Strike is a fantastic way to clear objectives of enemies. However, this ability has a major flaw when it comes to indoor areas. The Orbital Strike becomes a scanner, and the Spy loses a huge amount of its usefulness. I wanted to put the Spy in 14th place originally, but in the end, I decided to put the more well-rounded trooper higher. Dropping into 14th place is the ISB agent, or as my friends and I like to call it, the IBS agent. IBS is basically an officer on steroids. The abilities of the IBS agent are very team-based, so you won't get a ton out of them yourselves, but they could turn the tide on an objective. Her scan and rush are solid, but her double your efforts ability is what is really notable. This gives major health regeneration to yourself and your nearby teammates, which can buff heroes up to where they can immediately get back into combat after taking a significant amount of damage. The reason why the IBS agent is lower on this list is because her guns are serviceable enough in all ranges, but still not that remarkable, thus holding her back. The Rocket Droid takes 13th place. I'm ranking this one a little bit lower than the other Rocket Troopers because of two reasons. One is because the dodge on the Rocket Trooper is really not all that great, and two because the Droideka can accomplish the movement that the Rocket Droid has in a more effective manner, thus making the Rocket Droid less necessary for the Separatist. I'll explain the strengths of the Rocket Troopers later on, but remember, the Rocket Droid is still very solid. In 12th, 11th, 10th, and 9th place, respectively, are the Imperial, Rebel, Resistance, and Clone Jet Troopers. The reason that they're in this order is because that's the way I like their blasters, basically. All of their blasters feel very solid and are able to pack a punishing punch. The rocket is a nice crowd control ability, while the jetpack provides excellent traversal, allowing you to get to objectives quickly, leave fights swiftly, and evade shots effectively. Overall, these are great reinforcements, and so are all the rest going forwards. Taking the 8th place slot is the First Order Jet Trooper. The gun kinda holds the First Order Jet Trooper back, as it is fine but not all that powerful. The explosive shots are pretty good and are decent for large groups of enemies, however the shots do not do a ton of damage. The charge is nice for a quick kill or a speedy getaway, but overall not that incredible. What really carries the First Order Jet Trooper is the jetpack. The First Order Jet Trooper can move like no other reinforcement, and can be tricky to hit thanks to its ability to hover. Raining fire down from above provides your team with a nice new angle, and is not the first place that enemies will think to shoot back at. I actually kinda want to put the First Order Jet Trooper lower than the other Rocket Troopers, but I won't because I know if I did, I would get crucified in the comments. Overall, a very unique and solid reinforcement. The ARC Trooper is taking 7th place in this ranking. The ARC Trooper is an excellent trooper for one-on-one combat, but is not the best choice for fighting large groups. The blasters are fantastic and can dish out a great deal of damage quickly. The secondary fire is nice for long-range combat and harassing heroes. The helmet scanner is good for revealing enemies, but it does feel a bit too short to me. The shock trap is a nice ability to knock down enemies for a quick kill or to get away from combat. The ARC Trooper is only really lacking in the ability to fight large crowds and offensive abilities, but otherwise still a great reinforcement. Rolling into 6th place is the Droideka. Now this might be one of the more controversial placements for this list, but I assure you the Droideka has earned its high spot. The Droideka ranks as high as it does because of its unmatched objective dominance. The Droideka is incredibly fast and tanky, allowing the droid to quickly reach objectives to attack or almost indefinitely contest the objective. The objective capabilities of the Droideka are often decisive in ending or saving an entire game. What is really holding the Droideka back from the top 5 though, is its lacking attack capabilities. The Droideka certainly does decent damage and can take a hit. However, when the Droideka is attacking, it loses basically all mobility, making it a sitting duck. Overall, the Droideka is easily the best reinforcement for objective play in the game. However, it's certainly lacking when it comes to actual combat, thus keeping it out of the top 5. Starting our top 5 is the Super Battle Droid. I feel as if the Super Battle Droid is fairly slept on when it comes to how good it is. In fact, I nearly had him in 4th place over another beloved reinforcement. The Super Battle Droid serves its enforcer role perfectly, with its high damage output from its gun, overcharge, and wrist rocket in conjunction with its overhealth ability. The B2 Battle Droid is also a strong player at objectives on offense or defense. Its high firepower can clear a room or provide plenty of deadly cover fire. Being tanky also helps too, with making the droid even harder to dislodge from objectives. The Super Battle Droid is only really lacking in mobility, which is fine due to the slower playstyle required of its abilities. Just missing out on a medal is the Commando Droid. The Commando Droid is excellent in one-on-one encounters with its incredible agility combined with its vibro blade. The Commando is also rather effective in clearing out a few unsuspecting clones to secure an objective, although when facing down large groups of enemies, the droid becomes noticeably less effective. The Smokescreen and X-Ray are nice abilities, but overall do not make that huge of an impact on the power of the Commando Droid. In contrast, the Blaster is another highlight, being good at all ranges. Overall, fantastic against small groups, but loses some usefulness in large group scenarios, which holds it back from being in the top 3. Taking bronze is the Sith Trooper. The only complaint that I have is his lack of range other than the mediocre secondary fire. The Sith Trooper will shred anyone up close with his blaster, and his grenade is phenomenal too. The Oppression Grenade will likely kill any regular troopers, and if not, they will surely die soon thanks to the grenade stopping health regeneration. That effect is also detrimental to enemy heroes, which will likely lead to them dying or moving off the objective for some time. Secret Tactics and Combat Rush are also fantastic since it feels like you almost always have them active. Being able to see your enemies while rushing to them and getting health on kills is very nice. The Sith Trooper is overall a fantastic reinforcement. Our runner-up is the Death Trooper. I really had to debate whether to put the Death Trooper in 1st or 2nd, and what made the decision for me was that he was great at everything, but unlike 1st place, there's nothing that he excelled at like no other. The Death Trooper's overhealth ability puts its health at a comparable level to heroes. The overcharge ability is fantastic due to the trooper still being able to run while it's active, making you a mobile killing machine. The Sonic Imploder is also great, with a huge range being able to hit a ton of rebels. Of course, the Blaster is again fantastic, being good at all ranges. The Death Trooper is the most well-rounded thing in all of Battlefront 2. However, that was still not enough to be our 1st place reinforcement. The best reinforcement in all of Battlefront 2 is the Clone Commando. Let's go ahead and get the negatives out of the way, and talk about its blaster's range. The blaster is very good up close and serviceable at mid-range, but at long ranges it's basically useless. This is partially made up for though by the anti-armor attachment ability. Once you get the aim down, you can hit a target from nearly any distance and do a ton of damage too. The rockets are also super useful against groups of enemies and especially tanks. One Clone Commando can easily kill a tank with this ability, thus giving the Republic a huge advantage. Battle Focus also makes the Clone Commando very tanky, plus this ability strengthens your nearby allies, thus greatly buffing your team. Repulse can be helpful to knock down a hero, and in fact a skilled commando can go toe-to-toe with heroes, and sometimes even come out on top. Overall, an excellent team player and damage dealer, thus taking the number 1 spot. Thanks for watching. I'm sure many of you think my ranking was terrible, so feel free to debate me, and maybe I can add some clarification for my choices. Really, anyone should feel free to leave their list, because I'd love to see how everyone else ranks the reinforcements. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like. It's literally one button press and helps grow my tiny channel a ton. And if you feel like it, subscribing would be nice too. With all that being said, may the Force be with you. Peace.